Good evening, everyone. I am Lisha Dore, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to One-on-One, where we bring to you some of the best minds in Trinidad and Tobago. We are deeply honored to have joining us tonight the Honorable Devindranath Tancoo, Minister of Finance, Minister in the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, and Member of Parliament for Faizabad. This is Minister Tancoo's first appearance on our program since the April 28th general election, and we want to begin by extending our hearty congratulations to the Honorable Minister on, first of all, his victory at the polls in the Faizabad constituency, as well as his well-deserved appointments as Minister of Finance and Minister in the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development. And you know, Minister Tancoo, we were rooting for you to become the Minister of Finance. So we are thrilled. We are so happy about that. Now we have the Honorable Minister with us for just about 1 hour. We're already into that hour. So we want to get straight into the key national issues we are here to discuss. Firstly, the US $1 billion sovereign bond. Trinidad and Tobago recently issued a US $1 billion sovereign bond on the US market, which was oversubscribed by approximately 2.5 times. So this has been widely interpreted as a signal of strong international investor confidence in the country's fiscal direction and economic management. It is also worth noting that this is the largest bond in over a decade, with the proceeds intended for debt refinancing and development-related purposes. So we will speak a little bit more to Minister Tancoo on this bond. Big news for Trinidad, good news for Trinidad. Right, next, if we have time, we will touch a little bit on the rising natural gas rates, right? There is an issue of the natural gas prices raising by 76% for light industrial users. And if you've been following the media, the minister has urged businesses to find ways to absorb those increased costs and not passing them on to the consumers. Good news for taxpayers. Earlier this month, a substantial portion of the 2024 tax refunds have been issued. This is a welcome update for taxpayers, and it definitely signals some progress in the revenue administration. So again, time permitting, we could discuss that. Great news, I would say, for workers. In December, the public servants received a formal offer of the 10% wage increase. And just today, the headlines would have read that the National Union of Government and Federated Workers, which represents a large group of the daily rated public workers, they were also offered a 10% increase. So these are some of the key national issues. Please stay with us. We have a very engaging and informative discussion lined up tonight with Finance Minister, the Honorable Devindranath Tancoo. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our viewers who are joining us on Zoom and social media. We are live on Facebook as well as YouTube. Please share the link. Please spread the word. Viewers are free to join us on the Zoom as well. Right, we are absolutely thrilled to have everyone who is tuning in tonight. As usual, I don't know if time will permit for this particular program, but we want to make the session interactive. So we do encourage you to actively participate, raise your hand, use the chats. Now, without further ado, I want to pass the mic over to Donnie Mike Kumorita. He will give his opening remarks and take us straight into the discussion.
Good night, Lisha, and good night to our Honorable Minister of Finance, our very good friend, MP Dave Tancoo. It is a pleasure for you to be here, and thank you for taking the time. I know your time is as valuable as gold, as they put it. In light of your time constraints, we really appreciate you being with us here tonight. I would like to get straight into the discussion because I know that is what we are all here about. So, in context of what we are going to discuss tonight, Minister, can you give an overview of what was found when you assumed office in right after the April 28 elections, which would have led to the need for this bond.
All right. Thank you very much, Donnie, and good night to all your viewers. It's a pleasure to be here as always. Sorry I missed it for quite a while, but as you would have accepted, it's been extremely hectic in the last few months trying to
It's
fix the economy.
understandable.
And a lot of it happened because what we inherited was much worse than I think even any of us would have assumed before. Um, I want population to be reminded continuously of what we inherited, because a lot of what we are doing now is actually to fix problems that were created by the PNM. And I want to reemphasize that because sometimes, it's easy to get distracted by what some people are saying. You hear now the PNM all of a sudden have every solution for every problem. But when they were in government for a decade, none of those solutions were put in place. And as a matter of fact, they made things worse. So when I got in, we found an economy in substantial crisis and in decline. The economy had contracted already by 20%. We found substantial debts, and that's the issue that I want to treat with today. There are lots of other things. The levels of corruption that are uh, different levels than I think ever happened in this country before. But let me treat with the debt issue. That is the DEBT issue. When I assumed office, we found that the government had borrowed a substantial amount of money. I think it was 219 times that they had gone to private borrowing. But what that meant is that they were spending money. One in every $5 spent by the PNM was borrowed money. One in every five. So that meant that they were spending substantially more than the economy was generating, and they had to borrow money. I found an economy in the state where VAT businesses were owed billions. I think it was about $7 or $8 billion in VAT. Service providers, contractors who would have provided services to the country, building contractors included, contractors who were supplying things like medicines and medical supplies, they were owed billions of dollars. When you accumulate that, you were talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. So they borrowed a lot of money. They spent over $650 billion. But they borrowed money and had no way of paying for it. Now, if you are borrowing money to buy a car, you must know how you're going to finance the car, how you're going to maintain the car, and how you're going to pay back the loan. That is madness. What the government of the time did is they created no new revenue streams, no new sources of foreign exchange, no new sources of employment, so that even taxation revenues would have been increased. Worse than that, they facilitated what was determined to be by the IMF a $10 billion tax gap. What that means is that there were persons and businesses outside who were owing the government money, but simply not paying. $10 billion, and that's an annual figure. So if, for example, we were spending $60 billion per year, there was an additional $10 billion that the country was not collecting. So we have had a deficit under the PNM. There was about a $9 billion deficit in 2025. If they had collected that $10 billion, that is money held in somebody's hands. If they had collected that, we would not have had the crises that we have today, where we have this deficit that we need to service. Instead, what we found is that the PNM sacrificed the institution that was supposed to collect that $10 billion per year. That is the Board of Inland Revenue, the Inland Revenue Division. The Inland Revenue Division was working with a fraction of their staff. They were working with a program called GenTax, which tracks revenue and tracks expenditure. GenTax, they were working with level 8. Let me tell you how obsolete level 8 or level 9 is. The rest of the world is now at level 23, version 23. But Trinidad and Tobago under the PNM was operating at version 8 or version 9. What that tells you is that the former administration facilitated tax evasion, facilitated corruption, facilitated tax avoidance, facilitated people and businesses who were robbing this country of legitimate money. And instead of pursuing legally those who were breaking the law, what the then government decided to do was borrow and borrow and borrow, without putting, as I said, anything in place to repay the debt. I've heard talk today, so it was 223 new loans. They borrowed $119 billion. They spent 600 plus 650 billion and borrowed $119 billion. I heard talk today from a former Minister of Finance and a former Minister of Finance. You know, we have plenty of formers in that government. The 10-day Minister of Finance had the gall and the temerity to say that we were kicking the can down the road and we were sacrificing the economy and borrowing at 6.5% interest rate for a 10-year bond was political suicide. He hopes that people will forget why we went to market for this bond. We went to market for this bond because after a decade of the PNM, of no revenue streams, of not putting anything in place, we had to finance this bond. This bond is not a loan that we are taking in. This bond is pursued to refinance a loan taken out by the PNM. And the former Minister of Finance, he was a permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance at the time when they took the loan. And they took the loan in 2016 for $10 billion. Now, I've always said there's nothing wrong with borrowing money. You know? What is borrowing is if you don't know how you're paying it back, we have a problem. And they made no efforts, no plans, no sinking fund was created, no separate investment was created to generate revenue. And that's the difference between the PNM and the UNC. So to start with, this bond that the PNM suddenly discovered was a borrowing of funds. This bond was because of the PNM. We were borrowing $1 billion to refinance a bond that they created, to refinance a debt that they created, PNM. If we did not borrow that, we would have had to find it out of existing foreign exchange, and we could have done that. The Heritage and Stabilization Fund has about $6.3 billion in it. This bond is 1 billion US. So even just accessing from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, we could have easily used that instead of borrowing. But you see, we need to invest wisely. We need to use our foreign exchange wisely. That's something that the former administration did not do. So first issue, they created the problem. We are finding the solutions and fixing it. Secondly, under Colm Imbert, the rating agencies downgraded us continuously. When Colm took office in 2015, he found that we had an A grade rating. By the time he left, we had shifted down, I think it was 6 levels down from A grade to BBB minus. We had been subjected to continuous outlook depreciations over the time. So I blame Colm Imbert for the state of the economy. I blame the PNM's incompetence, lack of action, and corruption. That $10 billion tax cap, let us not forget that. Because it's in somebody's pocket. $10 billion per year went to somebody's pocket. We were in the crisis that we're in, we went ahead and we borrowed this money. But you see, we borrowed it, and that's the issue that I want people to remember too. We borrowed it against a backdrop of an economy that was struggling under the PNM. In the last 9 months of government, we have transformed the view. International investors are now looking at Trinidad and Tobago positively. I heard the same former Minister of Finance, Vishnu Danpal is his name, rattle off about, once the interest rate is good, the interest rate at 6.5% is low, it's high, and therefore people will pursue it aggressively. When Imbert went in 2024 for less money, he got an interest rate of 6.4%. He went for less money for a shorter period of time and got 6.4%. We, in a contracted economy, now having put things in place, managed to get $1 billion raised on the international market at 6.5%. Why is that important? You could offer 100% as your interest rate. If investors do not believe that that they're going to get their money back, which investor will be crazy enough to invest? And I like to break it down to regular people. If you know that you will lend your neighbor $50, but your neighbor is broken the thief, he has no way of getting that $50 back, would you be willing to lend? No matter what he promises, if he promises you 100% interest, you're giving it back in 2 weeks or 2 months. If you believe that he cannot pay your money back, you will not lend. Bond makers, investors, this is not neighbors now. These are international business houses. These are banks. These are financial institutions. What they do is investigate their investments. That's what they do. And $1 billion is what we went out for, and we got 2.5 times the offers. 2.5 times the order book, 2.5 times. As a matter of fact, Inwood should be jealous. We managed an excellent inflation rate, sorry, an excellent interest rate. We managed $1 billion. We managed to get 144 individual investors who were interested in investing in Trinidad and Tobago. The reason that they were interested in investing is we were able to convince them that their money was safe, that Trinidad and Tobago is now, today, a safe haven for investment. We were able to convince them that the actions that we have taken will improve our revenue streams. And I want to tell you all why and how. We didn't just sit down and cry and say, you know what, this country mash up, PNM mash us up. We accepted what it was, but I want to remind people of what it was. We accepted what it was and took bold new steps to change the direction. We introduced the fiscal consolidation, where we started targeting that $10 billion tax gap to see how much we could get from it, to increase our revenue streams to where it should be. So if we have $50 billion in revenue, now we should be getting $60 billion in revenue. It will not all happen at the same time. The way we did that is we looked at the BIR, which, as I said, was being operated with a fraction of its staff, and we immediately pursued the increase of over 300 new staff members. We increased their IT support, and we did the same for Customs and Excise. Now the Board of Inland Revenue, the Inland Revenue Division, can aggressively pursue tax that is sitting outside there, persons who are avoiding taxation. We also, so that is existing taxation. We also streamlined, we cut out corruption, we reevaluated, we streamlined expenditure so that on the one hand, we are increasing revenue, and on the other hand, we are reducing expenditure to manageable levels. But we didn't just do that. There are pools of revenue sitting outside there that exist that have not been touched. So for example, landlords. Many landlords in this country do not pay a tax. It's an income. This is not property tax. This property tax was based on fake income. You were receiving no income and they're taxing you as if you had an income, right? This is not property tax. This is taxation on an income. If you are not receiving a rent from your property, you have nothing to worry about. If you're receiving a rent and not paying an income tax, then you're defrauding the government. We went after that source of income. We are introducing a NIF, a National Insurance Fund bond. We are introducing a real estate investment trust. So what we are doing is increasing revenue streams from local revenue sources, but that can't be sufficient because remember, we need to pay this bond back in US dollars. So we established what was called a revitalization blueprint. That is the non-energy sector. What the revitalization blueprint does is increase investment, foreign direct investment into Trinidad and Tobago. It creates new jobs for people. It creates new industries. The plan is to create over 50,000 new jobs. It's the first time in decades. And I'm 60 years old. I could tell you about decades of the absence of a long-term and a medium-term plan. What we have now are 2 5-year plans joined together to create the revitalization blueprint. From there, we already went out on road trips where we marketed this revitalization program, this revitalization blueprint to businesses and governments in China and in the Gulf states. And the expressions of interest have been so substantial that a couple days ago, we had from the United Emirates, from the UAE, United Arab Emirates, we had a visiting minister who came to Trinidad and Tobago to take a look at the possibilities of doing business. So this is as opposed to when the former prime minister would travel and travel across Africa and all over the world on first class tickets paid for by taxpayers and come back with yam seeds. Remember that? Yam seeds. And after 2 or 3 years, we have heard nothing more about yam development. That is what TN used to do. When
Where the
TN used to
yam?
do business. Yeah, the yam disappear. But what we do when we travel, when this government travels, they come back with business. They come back with initiatives. They come back with action. And that is what you are seeing now with this revitalization program. So I identified increased revenue sources from local areas, from low-hanging fruit, from places where we did not have before. And I'm now telling you about new initiatives, new development programs, new ways of generating foreign exchange. But there's even better news. The energy sector is set to boom. Natural gas production is set to increase by over 2 billion scuffs per day in fiscal 2027 and going forward. So we are seeing very, very good things happening. And that revenue now comes, I just identified local from the tax purposes. I just identified the new initiatives from the revitalization and other programs that are happening, and from the energy sector. What you are seeing now is an economy that has stabilized. Now, nothing happens overnight. So you can't have 10 years of a downward trend and suddenly government comes in and immediately we have an upward trend. Uh, that's not how things work. What you will find is a downward trend, which we had in the last decade, is stabilization and then an uptick. Citizens don't have long to wait. The uptick we have already programmed and projected will be seen in 2027. So what does that tell you? If this is from 2015 to 20, if that is 2015 to 2020 to 2025, and I'm telling you in 2027, you're going to see this. What do you think is happening in fiscal 2026? It's a stabilization. It's an establishment of the plans and policies of the government, and we are already seeing these things materialize. We are already seeing increased revenue streams. We are already seeing a reduction in crime. Those are some of the things that would have affected the ease of doing business. Persons abroad, and we have a lot of citizens abroad who want to come back home, but who were afraid to come back home because they were afraid they were going to be killed and slaughtered like so many other persons had done. Remember, we had record high levels year after year. When you think it couldn't get worse, it did, until this government came in and crime dropped by almost 40%. Right? Figures. Facts don't lie. Figures are figures. They don't lie. So the ease of doing business has improved. Crime has gone down. The ease of access to foreign exchange is improving. It's a work in progress. I know citizens are getting anxious. We've been here for 9 months and we've not had the miracles. We have had the miracles. We have had movements of change. We have seen improvements across the board. We have just the foreign exchange, just with regards to the foreign exchange. There was a continuous decline in foreign exchange reserves held at the central bank. Would you believe from September to now, thanks to the initiatives taken by this government, the decline in foreign exchange has changed? It has started to move upwards, and the initiatives we are taking now will increase foreign exchange generation in Trinidad and Tobago. There is a challenge. There is a level of challenge in accessing foreign exchange, and that's because demand for foreign exchange is way higher than the supply. So what do we do? Do we raise the price by devaluation? Do we raise the price of foreign exchange? Or do we sensibly increase the supply of foreign exchange? Basic economics. If demand is greater than supply, price will go. When you have a situation where we have revenues, we have foreign exchange income, foreign exchange generation increasing, we are going to have a balancing up. And that's what we are already starting to see. You see, what was missing for 10 years was not just the UNC. What was missing is a political will. What was missing was leadership. What we got in 2025, in April 2025, we got the leadership that will turn this country around. People complain bitterly. PNM people, it hurts them when we boast about the leadership of Kamla Persad-Bissessar. I want to rub it in PNM's faces. We had Kamla Persad-Bissessar. We have Kamla Persad-Bissessar. You all had Keith Rowley. Compare that. You all had Stuart Young. Compare that. That's the difference. Chalk and cheese. One is a leader. And when you see you have leadership from the top, when you see you have leadership from the top, and Kamla Persad-Bissessar is leading, Lisha, you know this lady. Donnie, you know this lady. This is not somebody who rocks back and cuss people. This is somebody who has a hand on the pulse. And when you see you have that level of leadership, direct engagement, and you have the people at heart, then you create a team that is similarly oriented. And that's what you are seeing. You are seeing ministers work harder than any ministry has ever worked before. I could speak for myself. I'm working 24/7. I could talk to you about the Minister of National Security, the Minister of Homeland Security now, working 24/7. The Minister of Justice working, Minister of Education. Vandana Mohit is up all day, all night. And the reason for that is because we have the best interest of the population at heart, and you're starting to see it. So yes, things are happening. It may not happen as fast as the population wants, but it is happening. I assure you, the numbers don't lie. The numbers do not lie. Trinidad and Tobago is stabilizing, and after you stabilize, it's upward movement. There's much more I could talk about. I'm a politician, of course, and I'm anxious to talk. So what I would like to do is open the floor to individuals. If you have questions or any other issues you want me to target, please feel free. This is your chance.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm seeing some comments and questions on the chat. If any one of you all would like to speak directly to the minister, of course, we are live online. This is a conversation that is being broadcast on social media. Put up your hand and we will give you the floor to raise any questions or make any comments you want directly to the minister. We have the minister only until 9 o'clock, right? So we just have about 30 minutes left. Trini, if you could make it very quick though, because we want to give other people the opportunity to talk. So keep the question and so on down to maybe 30 seconds if you can. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Minister Tancoo. You mentioned something earlier about going after revenue that was not gone after before. I'd like you to elaborate on that, because some people is going to jump out of their skin and say you're instituting a new tax. It is people who were evading taxes that the Board of Inland Revenue was not collecting before. So I need you to stress on that, because they're going to jump out of their skin and say, oh, you're giving a new tax. Another thing is...
no, hold on. Let me treat it one at a time. I agree with you. This is not a new tax. This is not...
Correct.
This is not a taxation measure. This is implementing the law that persons have deliberately avoided. So, for example, just to use a easy reference, we have bar owners that would have had these machines in their premises. I'm not targeting bar owners, and we're treating with that as well. So we have bar owners who would have had these machines, these gaming machines in their premises. These gaming machines would have been generating an income. But bar owners would have not have been paying income tax. That's a figure that should have come to the government. So that's like tax evasion.
Correct.
Right? That is fraud and illegality. Either they did not declare it, in which case this is fraud, or they simply declared another figure, which is also fraud. We had what is called transfer pricing. Transfer pricing is when an international organization, an oil company, a substantial company, is drilling for oil, for example, and instead of putting the true cost of what it costs in Trinidad and Tobago, they have a subsidiary, and they make the subsidiary in a tax jurisdiction where the taxation levels are lower. They place the overall value there and a lower value here, so that the overall cost of production is the same, but the overall taxation level is lower in Trinidad than it is in the other jurisdiction. What we are doing now is passing legislation to deal with transfer pricing. Just by way of example, There was a study done by ECLAC, the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. ECLAC did a study, I think it's 2019, which showed that if the legislation, if the laws were implemented in Trinidad and Tobago, and these large energy companies were paying what is truly due, $17 billion, $17 billion TT per year would have been incurred and received by the government of Trinidad and Tobago from natural gas production alone. So that's $17 billion lost that should have come to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So what we are discussing is not a new tax. It is in fact people who should have been paying taxes and are robbing the country of due taxes. Not new taxes, the same old taxes. It's companies which are not paying corporation tax and individuals who are not paying income tax who should have been paying. And let me clear that up for you. When you consider $10 billion, that's not you and I, That's not small fry, That's not man in the street, That's not the average citizen, This is big pockets, deep pockets, which is why the PNM abandoned the Inland Revenue Division and therefore prevented the country from going after those persons. These are friends and family of the PNM, big friends and family of the PNM that benefited from this robbing, this stealing from the public purse. They have a subsidiary and family of the PNM. I sound good. I'm hearing myself again. But that is the issue. The issue is, with regards to this tax gap, this is money, $10 billion per year, which the PNM should have collected, which the Inland Revenue should have collected, but could not, even if they wanted to, because the PNM sabotaged the collection process. Just like they sabotaged the protection of our borders by starving the Coast Guard and allowing corruption, allowing drug running, allowing illegal guns, allowing prostitution and human trafficking through the Trinidad and Tobago Venezuela border. Just like that, they sacrificed the revenue collection in this country.
Okay, I am saying.
Minister, okay, sorry, just one question I wanted to pose to you, Minister. From your press conference on Sunday, I see, taken away from that, I see we, over the last 10 years, we have moved from a position in ratings from A to A minus, then BBB plus to BBB, and then from BBB to BBB minus. What, from your opinion, having assumed office in 9 months, would have presided over those ratings dropping to that level?
Well, the international ratings are based on several factors. What happens is that the rating agency comes in, take a look at the performance of the government, and takes a look at the revenue collection, take a look at the generation, and see how they are managing the economy. What happens then is if they look at the numbers and they see that your revenue, they see a tax gap of $10 billion. They know then that you are not doing the right thing. You are not running the country how you're supposed to run the country. You are abandoning efficiencies. You are starving your population of resources. Those are the reasons why you will get downgraded. But the critical factor for a downgrade by Standard and Moody's and Standard & Poor's, the critical factor is the confidence that you are going to be able to put money into the system and take money out. That loss over the 10-year period meant that businessmen who were looking on became hesitant to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. That is why there was no foreign direct investment. That is why, in fact, there had been a continuous loss, a negative trend for foreign direct investment. People were leaving here because they were afraid that if they invested in this country, when the time comes to get so they make a profit, you invest money here to manufacture something. It makes money, the business makes money here. And when you need to get your money to send back to your investors in the US, you couldn't get access to foreign exchange or you couldn't get access to the revenue. So we ended up with, I think it is 3 years ago or 2 years ago, we ended up in a situation where there was a loss of $400 million US, negative foreign direct investment. That's not happening now. That's not going to happen under this government. We are going to get positive foreign direct investment. Instead of people leaving, we are going to get people coming in. As I mentioned, that there are quite a few reports that I've seen where people are saying that businesses are closing. They cited the mall in Tobago. The businesses are closing because the economy is so difficult. The mall in Tobago, when they published, they indicated that they were in a losing model. They were having challenges. That's Lowlands Mall. They were having challenges from a financial perspective for many, many years. That has nothing to do with this government. So there was a lack of business. There was a contraction of business interest. There was a lack of potential, and that's why the mall closed down. If you live here, you know about Trin City Mall. When last you went to Trin City Mall? And see the amount of businesses that have been now abandoned. People cannot continue. I want you then to throw your mind back to 2010 to 2015. In 2010 to 15, we saw a boom in new businesses. We saw a boom in small and medium-sized businesses emerging. We saw a boom in the middle class. There's no middle class now. You're either poor or you're wealthy. And if you're wealthy, it's because more likely than not, you're tied somehow to the P&M. And we're coming after you. If you got your money and you can't explain for it, you cannot explain where you got your money from, that $10 billion, we're coming for you. So 10 to 15 is where we are going back to in terms of the direction. In 10 to 15, we saw a growth. 2010, challenge. 2015, growth. In 2026, we are seeing positive momentum, and therefore we are seeing growth. Already, the projection is for economic growth in 2026. The projection by the IMF already is growth in 2027, growth in 2028. And that's before we implement the revitalization program. That's before the initiatives in the energy sector kick in. So you can only imagine Trinidad and Tobago is the place to be going forward.
Now, you have indicated, prior that we are seeing 2026 as being a more stable year. And I will fully agree with that, because last week we would have the program on agriculture, in which I gave my annual forecast, in which statistically we have seen prices started to level off. So for this year, we don't expect any spikes and any kind of very high prices. And that speaks to the confidence in the system, right? Now, as we speak about confidence, one thing that is very incredible that I really want to go a little bit more in detail of. We have seen ministers and the government, led by the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, actively pursue a foreign engagement policy. And it started with India, with the visit of Prime Minister Modi. Now we are seeing successes, interest, and engagement, especially successes in 9 months that has overshadowed over 9 years. What is the secret to it? It's incredible. What is the secret to it?
Leadership and confidence. I'm glad you raised that. In 9 months, let me just narrow it down to who have been here in 9 months. Let me just narrow it down to some of the issues. The government of India, the largest democracy in the world, had a state visit by the leader of that nation to Trinidad and Tobago. We've had United Arab Emirates here as well. We've had visits from Ghana. We have had several international visits to our shores that are representative, very positive. We've had expressions of interest of persons who are interested in doing business in Trinidad and Tobago from China, UAE, India, Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, the United States of America. I should not have forgotten our largest trading partners. So for the first time in decades, in 9 months' time, we have been able to develop in just 9 months such a level of confidence and interest in investing in Trinidad and Tobago. Because, everybody wants to get on a moving train. Nobody wants to get on a dead train. Everybody wants to get on a moving train. And the rest of the world can see that Trinidad and Tobago, under this administration, is moving forward. And I want to highlight that the change that took place was a change of political will and leadership. The resources of the country remains the same. The new interests and initiatives we have implemented now for education, etc., the laptops in schools, those have not yet begun bearing fruit. We will see those fruits of those investments in 7 and 8 years. Next generations will see it. But we are not waiting for that. We are not playing games. We are planning short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And that we are already seeing the benefits from. And you ask, what is the difference and what is happening? Why so many people are interested? Because of the leadership. The best salesman in our country always has been Kamla Prasad Bisesa, the best salesman in our country. But I'll give you one more. We have now ministers who can traverse the world and speak one-on-one with industry leaders and get them to get into Trinidad and Tobago. When you have, I mentioned it before, when you have leaders who can lead, they accumulate a team around them that trains upwards and leads. I will never forget a former Prime Minister speaking to Trinidadians and talking about the UNC kindergarten. UNC kindergarten, as if that is such a bad thing. Look at us now. We are transforming Trinidad and Tobago. We are transitioning towards growth and development, something that those older heads, and I don't mean that badly because I have an older head too, something that the other government and governments before were not able to do, we are able to do because, and I'm maintaining this point, of political will. Because we want to see this country grow. I wear my flag on my chest with pride. If you do not have national pride, if you're not patriotic, you cannot want to see this country grow. So we have some persons whose only interest outside is a bad talk and bring down and mash up and criticize and condemn because they have nothing positive to say, nothing positive to do. It's ironic that so many have been in opposition for so long that they cannot see what's directly in front of their eyes, which is positive momentum. But that's fine. You need all kinds in this country. We will succeed with or without them because the country is depending on this government to succeed.
Okay, guys, time check. It is 8:47. We have quite a number of questions on the chats, right? I see Lyndon. Lyndon, you can go ahead. Please keep it short, please, because we want to address some of the questions and also give other people a chance to speak. We do have the minister until 9. We don't have much time left. Go ahead.
A pleasant good night to you, Minister. Tancoo.
Good night.
Lisha is Lyndon Digans.
Yes.
Minister, I'm trying to make it very quick, but I need to go back into the post-recessionary area when we were a booming economy under the PNM. And we end up in a recession in the 1980s. In came the NAR, and they had to implement some measures that the economy see as austerity measures for which they were not prepared for, right? And we know what happened then, right? PNM came and we had change in government. And now we find between 2015 to 2025, the PNM, this renegade government came in, plundered the treasury, plundered the economy, caused the economy to dip. We see the casualties in the economy taking place. We see job losses. We see a lot of things taken in the page that was in the country that was negative for the last 10 years. In came the United National Congress, or what we call the Coalition of Interests, led by Kamla Prasad Bisesa, right? The ground is saying that the measures that are being implemented by the government are similar to the narrow austerity measures, right? Outside of the media releases and media conferences, what is the government outside of that in order to reach to the grassroots people to understand the necessities of these measures and why are these taxes and things being the importance of these things, why it is being implemented, and they are not. It is not like it's not a situation where the government come in and is doing this to more or less put the country or the grassroots persons under more pressure, but it is necessary for the nation. What is the government doing actually
Thank you very
beside
much.
these things to reach the grassroots? Because it's the
Thank you very
grassroots
much.
that is speaking right now, and many times we have to reach out to them and try to explain to them what the government is doing and why is it necessary.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so let me start. Thank you very much for your question, Lyndon. I'm sure this is a question that you would have found on the ground as well. We are not practicing any austerity measures, If you look at, so I'm an economist by training. If you look at austerity measures, you talk about reduction in subsidies, elimination of subsidies. One of the first thing we did is reduce the price of gas. That would not have happened if we were under structural adjustment. We took decisions to improve persons' lives, to increase safety. So the taxes that we're looking at, there's an asset levy on commercial banks and insurance companies. That is not a tax on average citizens. That is not structural adjustment. That is tax on an industry that is generating a revenue that is not paying taxes on it. We spoke about the increase in fees and duties, etc. Those are not taxes. Those are fees for transactions and penalties. Some of those fees were not increased for 30 years. 30 years. The penalties that people are most upset about, those are for people who are doing wrong. Those are persons who are drinking and driving. Those are persons who are under those circumstances. The PNM made a big hullabaloo about how many people are going to be taxed are going to be traumatized because you have a blown light bulb. When we brought the legislation to the parliament to give a time frame for persons who have been found with some of these minor offenses, to give them time to fix it. The PNM voted against that. So I want people to be very careful about the messages that the PNM is trying to create, that we are suddenly all of a sudden creating all this pressures on persons. We increased the contribution minimally for the NIS pensions. We increased the contribution rate. You know why? For the last 10 years, the National Insurance Board was begging the government, please step in. They were going bankrupt. And what that meant is that Lisha, because you're young, right? I would have had a problem, I would have had a problem getting any medical benefits at 65. In 5 to 7 to 8 years, you would not have been able to get maternity benefits, injury benefits, or pensions because the fund would have gone bankrupt. That is why we took some of the decisions that we're taking. So I want people to be very cautious about the misinformation, the mischief that's been circulated. We spoke about jobs. They're criticizing and condemning the government, criticizing us viciously. Oh, I've heard all kind of figures now. If you listen to the PNM, about 400,000 jobs were lost in the last 9 months. You know what their bone of contention is? We showed evidence of corruption, ghost gangs in CPEP and URP. We stopped that. But what is offensive to me and what should be offensive to average citizens is that the PNM wants you to remain dependent on them. So they give you 10 days. They're not interested in creating businessmen. They're not interested in small and medium-sized businesses growing. They want you to fight for 10 days because if they do that, you will have to wait on them for 10 days for a CPEP work for once in a while. You got a little thing. That is what PNM wants from citizens, a little change so that they can always have you on a string. Look at who they are punished. Look at their areas themselves. The PNM have victimized their supporters by keeping them on a string. They are offended when citizens go against that. Our program has been to create new, reasonable, well-paying, sustainable jobs. Not at 10 days where you have to beg and cry and sleep with somebody to get that 10 days. The days for that's PNM time. We are creating new industries. It is taking a little bit of time because to do these things right, it must be done properly. And it's happening. It's already happening. I ask citizens to hold strain, but look and see what's going on. I am looking forward to being held accountable for my transactions because I think we are doing a very good job. I want to point out too that under structural adjustments, increases in salaries, increases in like what we have done with the PSA and what we are doing now with the NUGFW, those kinds of increases would never have happened. Structural adjustments refer to wage freezes. So what we are putting in place is not structural adjustment. We are a people-centered, people-focused, development-oriented government. Donnie spoke about the low prices of vegetables and farmers and prices generally. Yes, prices are high, but do you know that the inflation rate, the rate of price increase for the last year on year, was 4%, 0.4%, sorry, 0.4%.
Yeah.
That means that if you're looking at a dollar, it's less than a 4 cents increase. What that tells you is that prices have remained relatively stable.
Correct.
What we are doing now is making people feel confident. What we are doing now is increasing focus on agricultural production. If we do that, we have import substitution. Donnie, you know this very, very well. I'm sure you'd have said it
Yeah,
before.
man.
So we are trying to stimulate every part of the economy. We're not depending on oil. We're not depending on dragon gas. We are depending on every part of the economy, because when the tides raise, all boats raise. The objective is not to create a few jobs for a few people, it's to create job availability across the board. Small and medium-sized businesses, we are trying to recreate, reestablish, and rebuild the middle income and middle class, because that's where a lot of substantial revenue is generated and a substantial amount of expenditure on regular local consumption is generated.
Okay, guys, we have time just for one more question, and we have Shamra here, and then we will have to close up. Shamra, go ahead.
Mr. Minister, Madam, good night. Hope everybody's okay. Mr. Minister, I'm a youth farmer, right? And I would like to see going forward. First of all, good job on the budget. It may not be to everyone's liking, but as a youth, to me, it gives me hope, right? That we've taken a step in the right direction. So going forward, I would like to see more than 2% allocated towards the agriculture in our budget. I hope it's possible, and I look forward to seeing that. Thank you very much.
Excellent. I want to tell you that agriculture is, for me, as an economist, a low-hanging fruit. And agriculture has been a focus. What we needed to do is clean up the mess that existed there under the guise of agriculture. The former minister, anyway, let's not talk about the former minister. Let's move forward. The agricultural sector is one of the low-hanging fruit. I mentioned import substitution, but it's also, as a young person, you know this too, it's a business that could generate substantial amounts of revenue. It could generate, feed the population. It could generate foreign exchange because we could export. Agriculture is a low-hanging fruit. And when you consider import substitution only, you can create situations. Donnie, like I said, Donnie has done well as a farmer himself. You can create new products that can benefit Trinidad and Tobago and can be exported across the world. So yes, I hope to see much more from the agricultural sector, because that's an easy low-hanging fruit. We have thousands, tens of thousands of persons. We have tens of thousands of arable land available. All we need is, again, the political will to put them together, and you have the political will. Ravi Ratiram has been doing a very, very, very good job of promoting the agricultural sector. Donnie here, I know, is a veteran as well, who could also share tons of ideas. We've had many conversations, Donnie and I, about the ways to stimulate the economy and the way to stimulate the agricultural sector. I assure you, this is only year one. We now start. You will see substantial more developments going forward.
Okay, guys, it is now 8:58. We are out of time. We are going to have to bring the program to a close, right? I want to apologize in advance. I know there's a lot of questions on the chat that we didn't get to, but we will be having other sessions. Minister Tancoo, I know you said a lot, but do you have any closing remarks for us?
Yes, Lisha. What I would want to do is let them send me the questions. I will
Okay,
provide the answers so you can go through them as well and share them.
absolutely.
And I look forward to coming back on. Things have not gotten easier, but I will find this space to come on so that I'll be able to provide some more clarifications as well.
Fantastic. Donnie?
Good. Well, Minister, we all know that you're very busy. You're one of the busiest guys in the country right now. So when I ask you to come on, I was kind of worried, oh gosh, I wonder what's going to happen. But thank you for being here. We know you're flying out and you took the time to be here. It says a lot. You may have felt that you gave the commitment to answer these questions on your personal time and send back a response to us. We really appreciate it, and it speaks volumes to the kind of minister, the kind of government that we have now through this program, that people could actually engage one-on-one with the ministers. Thank you for being here, sir. We look forward to prosperity in the coming years. And from all of us, we thank you for the guidance that you have given this country economically so far.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, good night. Minister Tancoo, I just want to say good night to you. Thanks again, echoing the sentiments of everybody. I know you have to go, so I won't keep you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. for another episode of One on One. Thank you and good night.
Have a good night, all.